Hello everyone. Welcome to First Online University, a global platform for all your education and growth related needs. In this lecture, we are going to start with a new topic that is coordination compounds. Now, as is clear from the name itself, coordination compounds are basically that are complex structures, okay? So coordination means when it's like there is some sort of a coordination that exists between some say metal ion, or there is a metal and a ligand bond that is going to be formed. So whenever we talk about coordination, okay, so suppose let us say that you and your friend have a very good coordination with each other. So whatever project that you undertake, okay, that will be called a coordination compound in terms of chemistry. Okay, do not go by the what it would be called as some vocabulary in English. It's just a mnemonic, not a mnemonic, it's just an analogy to help you understand what a coordination compound would be. Okay, in this particular lecture we will be focusing on the introduction to coordination compounds, where we will be talking about what are coordination compounds, what was the Werner theory. Werner theory was given by the first scientist Werner, who was actually working on the on something else, but accidentally he went into the coordination compound. So a bit of a history involved, but that's very interesting. Then we'll talk of some important terms that are related to coordination compounds. So this lecture in overall is going to be very basic, very easy to understand, and very interesting also. Before we begin, a piece of information for you. You can use the coupon codes Mission JEE or Mission NEET while you enroll at First Online University for Mission JEE or NEET. Let us start with the introduction to coordination compounds. Now, before we move on to understanding what coordination compounds are, let us first understand what is a chemical bond. Now, chemical bond can be covalent, that is, where one electron from one element and another electron from another element are going to be mutually shared to form a bond. That bond, that chemical bond, will be called as a covalent bond. On the other hand, when I talk about the second type of chemical bond, that is ionic bond, when A is going to, suppose A is some element, it is going to form A plus, it will undergo ionization to release an electron, and the corresponding cation is going to be formed. Similarly, B is going to take up an electron to form B minus, and then A and B, that is A plus and B minus, will combine through Coulombic forces, okay, to form what we call as an ionic bond. And then there is a third type of a bond, which is called coordinate bond, also known as coordinate covalent bond. Why covalent? Because there is nothing like the formation of ions in it, so it cannot be called ionic. But we cannot call it properly as covalent because there is not mutual sharing. It's like when both the electrons are donated from one particular atom or element to the other. That is, there is a sharing, okay? There is no ionization that is taking place, or there is no formation of ions that is taking place, but there is a sharing which is not mutual. So sharing of electron pair from one of the atoms only will result in the formation of a coordinate bond. Let us have a look at the examples. HCl is the example of a covalent bond, okay? So it's like one hydrogen from one electron from hydrogen will combine with the outermost one electron from chlorine, forming 2 electrons in hydrogen and 8 electrons in the outermost shell of chlorine, so that both of them have the inert gas configuration or noble gas configuration or stable complete octet configuration achieved. Then in case of ionic bonds, we know NaCl is a very good example where we have Na plus and Cl minus combining to form an ionic bond, which we call as the common salt, right? The third example is that of coordinate bond being formed, that is between nitrogen and hydrogen. Now, since there are like The electron pair from nitrogen is going to be shared towards hydrogen, and there is going to be no mutual sharing, and therefore we call it as the coordinate bond. Now, what is a coordinate bond? If we have, say, ammonia, okay? Now we know that there are 5 electrons in the outermost shell of nitrogen, out of which 3 are engaged in mutual sharing, that is covalent bond formation with 3 hydrogens, but there are 2 electrons more left, which we call as the lone pair. Now this lone pair, and since it has an excess, that is it is electron rich, so it will be a Lewis base, that is the electron pair donor. Now this is going to combine with H plus, which has no electrons with it, but this lone pair is going to be donated from nitrogen to this electron deficient species, which is a Lewis acid, because it is electron pair acceptor or electron deficient. And as soon as this lone pair is going to be donated to this Lewis acid from Lewis base, the bond that is going to be formed is a coordinate bond. And the coordinate bond is always represented by an arrow. Okay, it's not a normal bond like a covalent or ionic bond shown with single lines. It is shown by an arrow indicating that the 2 electrons go from this side to this side. So this is how NH4 plus is an example of coordinate bond. Now, what are addition compounds? So now, since we know what is a chemical bond and what are coordinate bonds, let us now study what are addition compounds. Now, there are 2 types of addition compounds. One is double salts and the other is coordination compounds. So what we are going to study in coordination compounds is a part of addition compounds. So let us first see what happens in coordination compound formation. Now the transition metal atom or ions, which are formed a large number of compounds in which ions or neutral groups are going to be bound to the metal atom or metal ion through coordinate covalent bonds. So it's like whenever we have a transition metal or transition metal ion, okay, when there is going to, since we know that these are electropositive in nature, the metal ions or metals are electropositive in nature, they have the capability of accepting electrons. So whenever there is going to be some ligand, ligand is the group that is going to bind to the metal, okay? Now this can be a charged group or a neutral group. When this is capable of, donating its pair of electron to the transition metal ion or transition metal atom and form a coordinate bond, the compound that is going to result is called a coordination compound because there are coordinate bonds existing. Very clear from the name of coordinate bond and coordination compound itself. Now, if I talk of examples of double salts, KCl.MgCl2.6H2O is an example of a double salt. Now, what do I mean when I say double salt? Means it has 2 salts in it. KCl is one salt, MgCl2 is another salt. The common name for this is carnallite. Another example is K2SO4, Al2SO4 whole thrice, that is potassium sulfate, aluminium sulfate dot 24H2O. This has the common name alum. See here, this is not just for explaining purpose. Double salts are asked in the exam in the form of questions as to like what is the formula for carnallite. You have to choose the right option. Where you can be given KCl MgCl2.8H2O.6H2O or NaCl MgCl2.6H2O. So it is like very confusing. It's a very confusing way in which the options are going to be put forward to you. Therefore, you need to very well remember what is going to be the formula and the corresponding common name. Similar is the case with alum. Really important is the formula to understand. So what happens is as soon as we are going to add a double salt to water, which is taken in a beaker or some container, this double salt is going to form ions, that is, it is going to dissociate into its ions, right? Like K plus, Mg2 plus, and 3Cl minus ions are going to be formed. So that is a very good and major difference between double salts and coordination compounds, that double salts will dissociate completely into the ions which they contain, but coordination compounds do not do that. Let us have a look at the example. If we have K4FeCN6, okay, that is potassium ferrocyanide, we add it to water, what will happen is that this K plus part is going to go away, that is in the form of ions, but this square bracket part, which is called the square bracket, the entire square bracket along with the species inside it is called the coordination sphere. Okay, this coordination sphere will remain as it is. It will not dissociate into Fe2 plus or Cn minus. This is going to be the resultant ions in the solution. So double salts are going to lose their identity in solution, and coordination compounds retain their identity in solution. A very important difference between the two. Second difference is that if we talk about the solid state KCl MgCl2.6H2O, then the dissociation will result in K plus 3Cl minus plus Mg2 plus. But if we take this compound, that is coordination compound in the solid state, on dissociation, we will get 4K plus FeCN6 4 minus. So even in the solid state, the dissociation will result in same products. That is, they lose their identity and they retain their identity. So the property of the double salt is same as their constituent ions because it is getting dissociated into its constituent ions. So definitely the properties of that solution will also be the same as the properties of the constituent ions. But when I talk of coordination compounds, the properties of the coordination compound is not going to be the same as that of its constituent ions. It's going to be different. Then in double salt, we have ionic bond existing. That is why this bond breaks into corresponding ionic species in solution. But in case of coordination compounds, it may or may not be an ionic bond, but the complex part, that is the coordination sphere within the square brackets, will definitely involve coordinate bonds and not ionic bond. Okay, so the cation, that is K plus, and the coordination sphere can have an ionic bond existing between them. But within the coordination sphere, within the square brackets, we will always have coordinate bond existing between the metal and the corresponding ligand. So here, Cn minus is my ligand, which is an ion, okay, an ion that is negatively charged ligand. Then the double salts have a normal valency, whereas normal valency as in, okay, we will talk about the valency definition in the later slides. What you need to understand is that in double salts, there is just one valency known as normal valency. And in case of coordination compounds, there are two valencies, primary valency and secondary valency. Now, when we talk about compounds that are rich in vitamin B12, cyanocobalamin is a very important injection that is given in order to administer vitamin B12 in vitamin B12 deficient patients. So let us look at the structure of cyanocobalamin. Now, as is clear from the name, cyanocobalamin. Cobalamin means it contains cobalt, which has amino ligands. Now, this could be like NH3 or NH2R or NHR2. Here we have cobalt and these four amino groups. So this is the structure of cyanocobalamin. That is the dose which is given to vitamin B12 deficient patients. Don't worry, you need not learn the structure of it. Just need to remember the name. So this, secondly, when we talk about hemoglobin. Now hemoglobin has this structure where we have iron in between and we have porphyrin rings surrounding it. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is like a complete porphyrin ring that surrounds the iron which is present in hemoglobin. Again, you're not supposed to learn the structure. You need to know the importance of coordination compounds in our systems also. Okay, so it's not just in terms of chemistry that we are studying. These coordination compounds are present in our systems as well. The example is hemoglobin also. Next is chlorophyll, which is present in plants, required for photosynthesis, provides green color to the leaves of the plants, will have this structure. This is also a coordination compound where the metal ion is magnesium. So see, you cannot remember the structure, of course, but all you need to remember is what is the metal ion present in these structures. So in cobalamin, it was cobalt. In hemoglobin, it is iron. In chlorophyll, it's magnesium. Now, based on what we have just covered, let us solve a few MCQs. Which of the following is a double salt? Carnallite, yes. Epsomite, we've not studied, but go and search the structure of epsomite because we know that carnallite is the right answer here. So we need not go into further options and their structures because we know that only one option is right here. So correct option is carnallite. But I would still suggest you potassium ferrocyanide we've discussed. Go and search for the at least the molecular formula for carnallite and horn silver. Sorry, epsomite and horn silver. The second question is coordination compounds are formed by sharing of electron pair mutually, that is a covalent bond. Sharing of electron pair of one of the bonded atom, that's correct because it's a coordinate bond. Remember, coordination compounds are formed from coordinate bonds and therefore we have to look at what is the definition of a coordinate bond. Transfer of electrons, that is the ionic bond formation. Loss of electron completely, that is also ionization, but we're not talking about that. So the correct answer is option number B, that is sharing of electron pair of one of the bonded atoms. Now, when we talk about coordination compounds, the first and the most important theory is the Werner's theory. Now, what does Werner's theory state? Alfred Werner was the scientist who gave the following postulates. First is that the metal is going to possess two types of linkages, two types of valencies, primary and secondary valency. The primary valency is the ionizable valency. Secondary valency is non-ionizable valency. So now I think it's clear from the name itself. The primary valency would be the linkage which is present between the cation, that was K plus, and the coordination sphere. So between cation and the coordination sphere, what we have is the primary valency. And whatever valencies are going to exist, whatever linkages are going to exist within the coordination sphere, these are going to be the secondary valencies. So primary valency will be equal to the number of ionic bonds, that is the oxidation state. And secondary valency, oxidation state, like that of, we express it on the basis of oxidation state. The second thing is the secondary valency. Now, when I talk about secondary valency, this is equal to the number of coordinate bonds, that is equal to the coordination number. So let us discuss compound, its ionization, number of moles of AgCl that are going to form, and the total number of ions. See, this was the experiment that was done by Werner, and he, based on this experiment, gave these postulates that we are discussing right now. So what he did was, he chose a few compounds. He studied their ionization products. Then, okay, let's not move to the third column. Let us first stick to the first and second column. So now, when he was actually studying the ionization of COCl3.6NH3, he learned that 3 Cl minus ions were formed and there was this complex ion that was formed, that is hexamine cobalt 3 plus. We will study about the nomenclature, don't worry. So now he reacted the number of moles of AgCl that would be formed from 1 mole of the compound. So what he did was that he reacted this product that he was getting, the ionization products, with Ag plus, okay, some salt of, silver nitrate was the salt that he used, probably. So he reacted this with silver nitrate, and we know that 3 Cl minus are going to form 3 AgCl, 3 moles of AgCl. So the number of moles of AgCl which are formed from 1 mole of the compound is equal to 3. So that means the total number of ions that we have in solution is 4, right? 3 these and 1 this. So total 4. The next compound was where we had 5 ammonia. The ions that he observed was this because, and how could he predict that these were the ions formed? Because he saw that the number of moles of AgCl formed were 2 and the total number of ions that were formed was only 3. Then he moved on to 4 ammonia containing compound, and he saw that there were only 2 ions that were formed and only 1 mole of AgCl resulted. And lastly, when he considered this particular species, he saw that there was no Cl minus ion that was available or that was formed, and therefore there was 0 moles of AgCl which were formed, and there was no ion. Okay, it was a neutral compound. Right? So carefully look at these species. What do we observe is that primary valency of a metal can vary. Okay, here primary valency is 3, here it's 2, here it's 1. But the secondary valency, that is the coordination number, that is the number of ligands to which it is attached, that is 6 here, 5 plus 1, 6 here, 4 plus 2, 6 here, 3 plus 3, 6 here. So the primary valency can vary, but the secondary valency remains the same. The fifth postulate was that every metal has a tendency to satisfy both its primary as well as secondary valencies. Let us see how. Now, when we talk of a primary valency, there is a linkage that exists between a positively charged ion and a negatively charged species. Suppose Ag plus and Cl minus, Fe2 plus, SO4 2 minus, Na plus, Cl minus. But in case of secondary valency, its overall is the negatively charged ion, that is, say, Cl minus, that satisfies the secondary valency, or there could be a neutral molecule like ammonia, or there could be positively charged ions like NO plus also, all of which will have a lone pair of electrons that they are going to donate, that is not mutually share, but donate, resulting in the formation of coordinate bonds. Now let us look at this example first. When I dissolve this compound into solution, that is in water, what is going to happen is that the primary valencies, which are ionizable valencies, are going to break, which will give me cobalt, hexamine, cobalt 3 plus and 3 Cl minus in solution. Right? Now this is ammonia. Here is the ligand, which is a neutral ligand because it does not have any charge on it. So what happens is, what is the structure of it? So cobalt is going to be surrounded by 6 ammonia molecules, that is 6 ammonia ligands, and each of these is going to donate its lone pair to cobalt like this. Okay, forming 6 coordinate bonds. So the coordination number of copper would be 6. We have studied that coordination number is equal to the number of coordinate bonds formed. And now 3 Cl minus ions are going to be forming or satisfying the primary valency towards this copper. This entire sphere is the coordination sphere, and this is the primary valency that is being satisfied, which is called the ionization sphere. So the ones in the square bracket will completely form a coordination sphere, and this entire outer circle, which is representing the primary valencies, is the ionization sphere because it is representing the ionizable valencies. Now let us look at the structures of coordination compounds on the basis of Werner's theory. Let us first talk about COCl3.6NH3 complex. We have already seen the structure where it will have 6 ammonia forming 6 coordinate bonds, and there will be 3 Cl minus which are going to satisfy the ionizable or primary valency. And the actual formula is going to be written in this way. The next would be where we have 5 ammonia, but since we know that secondary valency remains the same, so one of the Cl will go into the coordination sphere and there will be just 2 Cl left in the ionization sphere. So the formula is going to be written like this. Thirdly, if we have 4 ammonia, so that means 2 Cl are going to come into the coordination sphere in order to make coordination number equal to 6. So there will be just 1 Cl that will be satisfying the primary valency here. The formula is going to be written like this. And lastly, where there is going to be all the Cl and all the ammonia satisfying just the secondary valency is going to be represented by this. So these were the structures of the compounds that were proposed on the basis of Werner's theory. This is how you write down the formula. Now, based on the ionizability, some complex compounds exhibit various colors. So talking about these compounds only, yellow color was exhibited by this complex ion, which is having no chlorine ligand in the coordination sphere. That is, hexamine cobalt 3 plus will be yellow in color because and the solution conductivity, that is, we know that with the increase in the number of ions, the conductivity also increases. Therefore, 4 number of ions, that is number of ions is 4, so it's going to have obviously higher conductivity as compared to others which will have 3, 2, 1 or 0 ions in solution. So remember the colors, these are very, very important. Purple color is possessed by pentamine chloro cobalt 2 plus, which has 3 ions. Then green color by tetramine dichloro cobalt plus, that is cobalt 1, the trans isomer of it, which has 2 ions, and violet color for the cis isomer of it. Now we know what is trans and what is cis when the same ligands are on the opposite side, that is trans. When they are on the same side, that is cis. And since we know these are 2 different isomers existing for the same complex, so obviously they will have different properties and hence different colors. So you need to remember the colors. This is very, very, very important, okay? Now, based on what we have done, let us solve a few MCQs. Secondary valency of a metal can be satisfied by negative ions. Yes. Positive ions? Yes. That is within the coordination sphere. Neutral molecules? Yes. All of these, so option D is the right answer. Second question is, which of the following is green colored? As I told you, the colors are very, very, very important. So you should be able to answer this question by yourself. This is a very common question that can be asked in the exam also. So the correct answer is both B as well as D. Now, B we have studied already, but remember that nickel 2 plus salts are usually green in color. So option B and D both are right answers. Now, let us move on to discussing some important terms that are used in coordination compounds. If this is the coordination compound that we have, this is called as the central metal ion. Cobalt, see, go by the colors, okay? Cobalt green in color, so its name will also be in green color and so on. That is just to make you remember what is called what. So cobalt is known as the central metal ion. This entire is the coordination sphere. Ammonia is called the ligand. 6 here is representing the coordination number. This is the counter ion which is present. So Cl minus here is called the counter ion which is present in the ionization sphere. 3 plus is representing the charge on this complex ion because it's like something complex to look at. Therefore, it is called complex ion. So let us now understand these terms in detail. What is coordination entity or coordination sphere? A coordination entity constitutes a central metal atom. So remember what is there in the square brackets or the coordination sphere. Coordination sphere is also known as coordination entity. So inside the square brackets, we have a central metal atom or ion which is bonded to a fixed number of ions or molecules. For example, in this we have the coordination entity having cobalt as the metal ion and 3 ammonia molecules and 3 chloride ions are the ligands. This is going to be the structure of it. Next is central atom or ion. So in a coordination entity, the atom or ion to which a fixed number of ligands are going to be attached in a definite geometrical arrangement around the central metal atom, that is called the central atom or ion. For example, the central atom or ion in the coordination entities, nickel, okay, let's not go into the nomenclature, otherwise it would be tetra aquo dichloro nickel 2, right? So here nickel 2 plus is the central metal atom or ion, and these can also be referred to as Lewis acids because they are accepting electron density from Lewis bases, that is ligands. So based on this, let us solve 1 or 2 MCQs. The first is the central metal ion which is present in cobalt hexamine chloride complex. So you can see it in the name only. The central atom is a metal, right? So cobalt is the metal, ammonia is the ligand, nitrogen and Cl are obviously not going to be included because nitrogen is a part of the ligand and Cl is a ligand itself. So the correct answer is option number A, that is cobalt. Next is the coordination number of iron in potassium ferrocyanide complex. So you have to write down the structure first of all. So potassium ferrocyanide has the formula K4FeCN6. Now here, the number of coordinate bonds is equal to 6 because there are 6 ligands. So the coordination number will also be equal to 6. Therefore, A is the right answer. This is given to you just to make you understand, but you should know the formula for yourself. Okay, so the name of the compound can be given to you like this and you should know the formula by yourself. It's not necessary that the formula is going to be given to you. And do not worry when we talk about the nomenclature of coordination compounds and we study how to name a particular compound, or if a name is given, how to find out its formula, then these things will become very easy and simple for you. So this is all about the introduction to coordination compounds. We will move into greater details of this chapter from the next lecture onwards. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel for joining YouTube live classes for best NEET or JEE coaching. You can also download the First Online University mobile app for continuous learning through your smartphones. Keep learning with First Online University, a team of millions of learners and educators worldwide.